So, you want to play Warlock and become evil incarnate, casting shadowy magic to tank your foes. Well, great, because that's going to be pretty great in Season of Discovery. And if we talked about what kit got the most changes, which one changed the most dramatically in Season of Discovery, I think few could argue with the fact that Warlocks have the most changes. I mean, they're tanking as a cloth wearer. I mean, we've had form tanks before with Druid, but this is something completely different. This is going to be a cloth wearer that's able to tank from a range. That's never been done before. Range tanking. All right, for those of you who don't know or aren't familiar with it, Season of Discovery is going to be a new season for World of Warcraft Classic that's coming out that's going to reshape everything you know and expect when it comes to Classic WoW. There's going to be tanking Warlocks, tanking Rogues, melee Hunters, and balanced warriors, a bunch of stuff that's going to really reshape what we expect to see. Now, today we're talking about Warlock specifically and going into how they can tank, and we're also going to talk about the runes that are available for them. Whenever we talk about Season of Discovery, the most important thing to start with is the rune mechanic. Runes are going to be things we find throughout the world doing a multitude of different possible tasks, puzzles, and Easter egg hunting, all these ways. When we find the runes, we can put them on our chest, gloves, and legs, starting with the first phase. This may change in the future, but for now, we know we have 3 slots for them. There's specific runes that go in each one of these slots where you can mix and match the other choices from the other assigned slots. So first, let's talk about the runes available. We're going to start with the chest runes. First one we see here is Lake of Fire. So this is going to make it so that your Rain of Fire is going to leave an AoE patch in the ground that's going to make it so that your spells and also your pet effects as well are going to be 40% more effective for 15 seconds in this spot. This is going to be great for if you're thinking about doing that tanking Warlock, for example. This is going to be almost like a concentrate where you're going to have that area of influence around you where you're going to do a lot more to them. Master Channeler is really interesting. So your Drain Life is just an instant cast, and it's going to give you 50% more on the healing. Now, this is going to be kind of your siphon as a Warlock tank. If you wanted to tank as a Warlock, this is another great option where it's just going to enable you more survivability because you're able to place that Drain Life on enemies, and it's way more effective than it is if you just stood there and channeled. Now, why this is such a big deal for if you're deciding to use this and you're tanking Warlock is that whenever you channel a spell, you get rid of all avoidance, right? Because you can't dodge while you're channeling a spell. So this gives you the ability to use Drain Life while being hit by things, and it's going to make you that like drain tank up on the front lines as the Warlock. Now, Affliction is going to love this one. So we put all our dots up on our enemy, and then we use our Drain Life, and we're able to get a lot more back based on how many drain effects are on there. Demonic Tactics here, a solid DPS one where you're going to be able to increase crit chance for your spells and your pet. Not bad. Now we're moving into legs. This is where things get pretty interesting. And it's interesting not because of this specific effect, but something it mentions on here. It talks about Shadow Cleave. Shadow Cleave is going to be what replaces your Shadow Bolt. So when you're in that Metamorphosis form, which again, spoiler, we'll get into that in a second, but you've seen that demon guy walking around. You remember him from before. Yeah, he's back. So you're going to be able to get a spell called Shadow Cleave instead of your Shadow Bolt. This is going to be a melee version of it where you're going to be able to cleave the enemies in front of you. It gives you some more threat generation. So this refresh to corruption is kind of a nice quality of life and could be great, but I really don't see this as a standout. This is more of a convenience thing than it is like really game breaking in any way. Let's move on to the next one. Incinerate's great when you're focusing on fire damage. So if you're Destro Warlock, you're going to be able to do a lot of more fire damage just by picking up Incinerate as well. Incinerate was something from the future that again came into Season of Discovery to give the Classic WoW Warlock some tools to mess with. Demonic Grace is really cool here. It's a short cooldown. It's only 20-second cooldown, and you're able to increase your own dodge by 30%. This sounds like a very necessary cooldown for tanking Warlocks to have. Playing as a meta Warlock means that you are going to be a cloth wearer on the front lines, but let's take a look at Metamorphosis very soon, where we're actually going to be able to deal with that pretty well. Yeah, Demonic Pact, it's coming back. So this one here is going to allow all of your party members to benefit from spell damage increase and healing increase based on your spell damage. Now, there's an important part here because when you talk about spell damage in Classic WoW, there's not a whole lot of it. We're going to be able to have a baseline of this instead of always scaling off spell power. Because as time goes on, that's going to be great, but we're level 25, right? So having a base level spell power, that second to last sentence there is really important where we say that we have a base level. And then later when we're getting into phase 4, Nax and tons of spell power, all that kind of stuff, then maybe we'll have, well, hopefully we'll have more spell power than, but we're starting at level 25. So that base level, I think, is really important to mention here. This is gonna be good early and it should be good late. And here it is. This is like the poster child of Season of Discovery. Everybody's looking at this thing like, wow, that's so cool. So Metamorphosis is basically going to give you as a Warlock a transformation form. I compare this to Druids and how Druids can just shift into a form and remain in that form for as long as they want to be in it, or if they die. Then this is going to be the same thing for you as a Warlock. You just choose when you want to go into it. It changes the abilities that you have, and then you're able to tank because of this wonderful buff of 500% increased armor. A key overlooked part of this is that you reduce your chance to be critically hit by 6%. That's why tanking didn't work on a lot of these classes before, and you'll see this come up in several of the tanking runes again and again. What it does is that it makes it so you can't be crushing blowed. If you don't know, if a monster is able to have a certain amount of crit on you, or they outlevel you by a certain amount, or whatnot, you're able to be crushing blowed, which is just such a strong hit. It's beyond a critical hit. So this is going to remove that from the possibility of being up on the front lines as a tanking Warlock. You're never going to be crushing blowed because of that right there. And that's the secret sauce that really brings it together and makes sure that this is something we can actually do as a Warlock. And down there, you're going to notice that Shadow Bolt comes Shadow Cleave. We already talked about that before. That's going to be AoE threat generation. Curse of Recklessness is actually going to be your main taunt, and then you're going to have Demonic Howl. That's going to be your AoE taunt for everybody to come attack you. So as you can see, Warlocks have all the tools they need to make this happen, to be a tank. And the developers did mention that they mean for this to be a main tank situation. This isn't just like a side support only for dungeons kind of thing. No, you can have a main tank Warlock at level 60 if the design goes through correctly. So with that being the must-have rune for the gloves, we're going to go into the other ones that are going to be more based on DPS. And there's some cool things in here. Shadow Bolt Volley is going to be that attack that sends out 5 Shadow Bolts at 5 different targets. Warlocks are going to have access to a wonderful AoE attack with this Shadow Bolt Volley Cleave style move. It's going to be really cool. And there it is. Chaos Bolt is coming to Classic WoW. That is just so crazy to me. Notice that not only are you going to have access to Chaos Bolt, which for those of you who don't know it, that's like that big nuke hit that you get hit with in a BG and you don't know why you die. And then you're like, oh yeah, well, Chaos Bolt. But this also causes your fire spells to pierce through absorption effects, which reminds me of chaos damage from PoE, for example. You do damage to their health bar instead of to their barrier, which in PvP, that sounds super cool. And I'm so sorry, priests. Affliction's getting this like AoE drain tank style move, and it's actually coming from a future expansion down to join us here in Classic WoW. This thing's really cool. You pop up all your dots, put a haunt on there, and then you're keeping alive. It's like a damage defensive cooldown. It's really cool. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put up 2 talents and I'm going to link them down in the description. One, you're going to take a look at for if you're considering tanking. And this is something that could change once we actually get our hands on it. I'll update the link below though. And then also for the DPS Warlocks, take a look at this one over here. I think Affliction is going to be the way to go for leveling. I do think Destro is looking super fun for like PvP scenarios. And of course, Affliction is going to be wonderful PvP scenarios as well. I think when it comes to damaging in dungeons and damaging in raids though, I think Destro is going to be the king. And I do think that we're going to have a lot of tanking Warlocks. First of all, it looks really good. I think Warlock could possibly be the most populated class coming up here soon. But also range tanking sounds super solid. I think that there's a lot of tools here that the Warlocks are going to have fun with, and it's going to make him a super, super effective tank. Not convinced in the Warlock? Don't worry. Take a look in the description. I'm reviewing all the classes, their upcoming changes for Season of Discovery, so you can make the decision that's best for you. Also, if you got a friend that's unsure if they want to do Season of Discovery, go ahead and send them the video I linked down in the description. I go into a full-on hype session that's just talking about Season of Discovery and why it's a big deal and why you and your friend should definitely try it. I'm going to try to convince them, and hopefully we both see them in Azeroth on the 30th. And that's going to do it, everyone. If the video helped you out today, please heroic strike that like button. And if you want to stay tuned for more WoW content in the future, please bash the subscribe. I appreciate your time today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.